Tonight we're going to do Satanama. Each time you close a mudra by joining the thumb with a finger, your ego seals its effect in your consciousness. So we're going to do Sa-ta-na-ma, and both hands. Sa is the beginning, infinity. Ta is life. Na is death, change. Ma is rebirth. Sa-ta-na-ma is so primal that its impact on our psyche is like splitting an atom. The power of its mantra comes from the fact that it rearranges the subconscious mind at the most elementary level. It has the power to break habits and addictions because it accesses the level of the mind where habits are created. So, if you do this for like 10 minutes every day, you will see major changes taking place in your life. So, Sa-ta-na-ma, 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 Satanama, 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 Satanama.
Good evening, everyone. In ancient Greece, there was a temple built to honor the couple of gods. One of them was Apollo. And that temple was in Delphi, Greece. And it had an archway over it. And on that archway was written two admonitions. The first one was, "Know thyself." And the one beneath it was, "All things in moderation." And I imagine that the people of that time passed under that archway into the temple where they would beseech the gods for some favors, which is what they were known to do, as even today many people are praying to God to have some type of change in their experience, or even for someone they know that they care about. They are praying to God. And I suspect the people of that time were praying to their gods in hopes of having those particular gods intervene in their everyday lives and bring about some change that would be beneficial in their own understanding. And then there is the problem that even people of modern times have, almost everyone has. The problem is most people actually believe they do know themselves. And when you have an admonition that says, "Know thyself," it's kind of just ignored because people feel like, "I know myself." And nothing could be further from the truth for most people, because if they knew who they really were, the true self of their being, they would have peace of mind. They would have a mystical peace that is often referred to as joy. But since all of these people do not have that mystical sense of peace and joy, it is because the self they believe they know is the self in their head. That self that came about as we grew up in our childhood, in our early adult years, and through life. What that self in their head represents is a composite of all the beliefs that one has taken in. That's all anyone in the unenlightened state is a composite of those beliefs he or she has taken in over his or her period of life so far. And that is the reason why we believe we know ourselves and we hold certain opinions about others and life in general, which are simply erroneous. Because what we believe is what is filtered through this level of beliefs we have collected. So it's necessary for us, at some point, if we want to find that life truly worth living, if we want to know thyself, thy true self, we will have to take to task our limited definition of self and begin to see it for what it is, and begin to release the limited ideas that it generates And naturally, those ideas are limited because they're based upon a fear that occurs when the definition of self is confined to a single separate body personality. As long as we are interpreting life from that perspective of being a separate body personality in a world of separate phenomena that doesn't necessarily have any regard for our interests, then we are defensive almost continually. Then most of our decisions are based on fear and concern, projection, so that we will live a life of conflict because we are not awake to the fact that there is no separate self. There is no separate self. In a sense, the separation is only sustained by the clinging to limited beliefs that are erroneous. I will share with you a Zen truth. You don't have to try to figure it out now, but you can take it with you. No one ever walked over the worn-out footbridge. No one ever walked over the worn-out footbridge. So we have to take on the task of awakening, the task of seeing through our initial state of consciousness based upon the worldly concept of separation, that all these human beings are separate, all separate minds in separate bodies carrying on separate interests, and that is the world of conflict, fear, illusions, and war. If we want to enter into a higher dimension of awareness, we simply have to embrace the cogent truth at the heart of every major religion, which is that we're all one. There is just one in all, and all in one. And that one that is in all is this higher self, is the self we need to know, is the self that brings insight, is the self that brings healing, is the self that brings peace. And we have to, somehow or other, begin to align our awareness with that and allow the limited definition of self to be quietly, slowly released in the process of living. We do this knowing that we are what is referred to as karma yogis. In other words, if you're in unity, you are involved with practicing karma yoga. That is, we do not withdraw from the world. We do, in some ways, withdraw from the thinking of the world, but we do not withdraw from the world into an ashram or a convent or a monastery or even an ashram in India or anything like that. It's not, it can be a positive experience to spend some time in an ashram or even in a monastery or a convent. They can be helpful. if we remain awake in the process. But you see, in those situations, everyone there is, from a spiritual perspective, being considerate of all others. We have to learn how to be considerate of all others while we remain living in the world. All others who aren't necessarily awake. So we have to be keenly aware of not reacting as we used to do from the limited perspective that I'm a separate body mind in a world of separate others, and I have to be very watchful about my self-interest. I have to be concerned so that I won't let other people get ahead of me, get over on me, cheat me, and we hold other people in that state of fear. And a lot of what we intend to do is fear-based. We're doing everything we can to protect this illusionary definition of being a separate self. And it's simply illusionary because it's not true. And once we get that understanding, then we flow with, on another level, another dimension of experience in which we become instruments of healing awareness. Because we hold peace to be our goal in every situation, we do not react. We do not respond. There is no negative attitude toward anyone, even though that one may be operating from a limited point of view. It doesn't matter. We don't do that because we love the joy and the peace of being free in the awareness that there is only God. Everything we look upon is seeking and knowing, wanting to know God, even though at some point now in their particular manifestation, they are far removed from the ideal of there being divine one of love, of healing, of peace. So, that's our calling, and it's not easy. But here we have the Master Eckhart Tolle speaking about this higher self. This is from Eckhart Tolle's book, Stillness Speaks, page 57. When you know who you truly are, there is an abiding, alive sense of peace. You could call it joy, because that's what joy is. Vibrantly alive peace. It is the joy of knowing yourself as the very life essence before life takes on form. That is the joy of being who you truly are. That, in a sense, is what Jesus was praying for his disciples in the book of John. Not praying that his disciples should leave the world, but they would remain in the world, but not be of the world. Which is, they would remain in the world, but they wouldn't be operating from the thinking of the world. And here Eckhart Tolle is saying something similar about what that particular admonition over the temple of Delphi in Greece is. Know thyself. Here's the master, modern day master, Eckhart Tolle saying, when you know who you truly are, there is an abiding, alive sense of peace. You could call it joy, because that's what joy is. Vibrantly alive peace. It is the joy of knowing yourself as the very life essence before life takes on form. That is the joy of being who you truly are. We would come to the understanding as we practice the presence of truth. We will come to the understanding there's never been an age in the historic periods of humanity where this particular truth was not at least present, not in an extremely overt way as it is today. It is overtly present today in many different teachers. But back way when the technology wasn't as vibrant or as all-inclusive in our experience, back then there were always the one or two masters of life who were sharing these truths, all the way back to the time of Jesus, who shared it in his particular society and time, and allowing the people to come to an understanding that transcended the dogmatic conditions created by their religion. The fear that's created by the illusion of there's them and me. And I have to be very careful that they don't get over on me. And that, of course, is all fear-based illusion. So I'm probably repeating myself, but it seems, and I know this is so because I've been in the ministry long enough to know it. Some people, when they're getting onto the spiritual idea of aligning their consciousness with this greater intelligence and awareness of which they are one, that exists at the core of their own being, there is the idea that somehow or other it alleviates problematic or difficult circumstances. In other words, when you finally open up to the idea that there is a greater all-encompassing intelligence, when you start to open up to that, some people have the idea, well, it's going to put an end to all the difficult conditions and circumstances that people meet on their path. And that's not the way it works. The way it works is that through the practice of prayer, meditation, and taking a holy pause to allow the more refined awareness to come into focus in one's mind. In doing that, we are lifted above the conditions, the circumstances. They're still there, but they no longer have the effect of making us afraid, of casting us down. Because with that rising in consciousness, we have insight. And in that insight, we know how to transcend the conditions or circumstances that have arisen, which prior to this practice of the presence, we would react to, and we would feel depressed or afraid, anxious, and blaming. But when we do the practice of the presence, that raises our consciousness, our awareness, above the conditions that ordinarily would be threatening. And once we have raised our consciousness above the conditions, then we receive insight, knowledge that leads us through those conditions. It doesn't eliminate them. There will be challenges as you become more and more enlightened, but each challenge becomes easier to transcend because you found your way into the consciousness divine. That's simply the way it works. Back when we had those 3 days without, many people without electricity, when the winds were really blowing as hard as I think they ever did, and the electricity was shut off in many, many places. It was shut off up in my home, and we had to take everything out of the refrigerator and put it into a camping cooler, and we had to buy ice and put it in the cooler to try to save the food. And we had another bin, a regular bin, that we filled with ice. It was a rubber bin, and we had to put other food in there to preserve it. And in the process of doing it, there was a moment when we started to laugh at the whole absurdity of it. It just became humorous, thinking that we're all in this problem now, dealing with it, and it's kind of absurd because it just turns out now you've got to do something, that's not modern. You have to do something that you've never been used to doing, and now you have to do it to just get by, and it seems like you're protecting your stash, you're protecting your food. Well, it could turn out that that process wouldn't even work. I mean, after 3 days, most people got the electricity back. We did. But it seemed very humorous at the time, so much so that we were laughing at ourselves, even though we not only had to put the food into these particular containers, but we had no electricity, there was no light. It was dark. We live up in the mountains, so when it's dark, there's no street light. You just have candles. And we fortunately had 2 lanterns that we could use. But do you realize that instead of going through these difficulties that come upon us with an attitude of, why does this happen to me? I'm not prepared for this. I have so many things I have to get done. This is how the ego thinks. I'm really stuck now because of these winds and the electricity deal, and I have things I have to get to and get done because it's part of what I do in order to move my life forward and improve the conditions of my circumstances. But when that's taken away, and you can look at it the way we finally looked at it, with kind of humorously, there was nothing we could. We had appointments. We had things we were planning on doing and getting done. And all of that was taken away. And it was kind of a relief. And then it was kind of funny. And when you get to that place where you realize entering into a God-conscious state of being is not freeing yourself from circumstances that would be challenging. It's raising your awareness above those circumstances so that you are not thrown down by them. You're not upset and made so totally depressed by them that you don't know what to do. You know what to do. It's not the best. You say to yourself, this could be maybe a better way to do things, but this is what I have to do now. This is what I'm guided to do, and I can do this. And that's what the enlightened state of consciousness actually is. Let me share this with you from A Course in Miracles. In quietness, this is from the Course in Miracles text, page 533. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. There's an interesting concept in that first line. In quietness are all things answered. You see, when we have a problem arising, quietness quite often is not what people of the world do. What people of the world do is they panic. I've got to get this fixed. I've got to get this done. I've got to find somebody to help me do this. Instead of doing that, the enlightened will be quiet and withdraw from any type of panic whatsoever, so that answers and solutions can come through. When you panic, you're simply blowing up the entire operation of consciousness. So this line is very telling. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict, there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible, and to ensure no answer will be plain. A problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways, and what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer from another. You are in conflict, and what it's saying is if you're still operating in the illusionary definition of life, you are in conflict. There is that definition of me and all that is not me, and there is the separation, and out of that comes the internal, ongoing conflict of me against the world. So a problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways. And what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer from another. You are in conflict. Thus it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Yet if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved. For what He wills already has been done. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. So, this takes us out of traditional religion totally. While traditional religion holds the idea of God and heaven being somewhere off beyond the stars or wherever, and that holds us in some kind of fear and concern about having to do our penance in order to be accepted on that day when we drop the body and finally go to heaven. And maybe then in heaven we will have this peace, this joy, this love, this insight. But that's totally erroneous. Peace, joy, heaven, and insight are ours to enjoy now if we awaken to the truth. And here's that truth again. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible. what it's saying there, it's referring to ego-centered idea of self is forever trying to sustain the illusion that you can pull it off. You can finally get the conflict to operate in relationship to your dictates, desires, and expectations. In other words, from your ego point of view, you could become smart enough, brave enough, rich enough, popular enough to be able to manipulate those conditions and circumstances so that they turn to bring you your personal expectations. You get what you want. You get the house, you get the big car, you know, you get the relationships, you get those trips abroad. And then you'll be happy. I've rubbed shoulders at some point back before the ministry with multimillionaires. I worked in an ad agency on Madison Avenue in New York City. And the owner of the agency was one of the owners of Arby's, a food chain, if you can call it that. I don't know. We never went to Arby's, but he was a very wealthy person, and he had all these medications he would take because of his ulcers and his colitis. And so he was not a very happy individual. But he kept thinking somehow or other that he would be happy. And I remember talking to him one day, and he said an interesting line, because we had a client in that ad agency whose name was, I'm going to use it now, Fred Caden. Fred Caden was so wealthy that he owned a ski resort in Aspen. So he was very wealthy, and he had a number of investments, so that, you know, he's the kind of guy that has his own private plane and things. And this guy that was a multimillionaire who ran this ad agency and owned a piece of Arby's, that he thought, if I could only have that much money, and I'm a lowly copywriter, you know, I think at the time, and this was a lot of money for me, at the time I was making $600 a week. And I thought, boy, I'm in high cotton. But it's all relative. You see, the illusionary driven mind operates in comparisons. And there can never be. Eckhart Tolle says this very clearly. He said, there's always going to be people above you in every possible way, shape, and form, and there'll always be people below you. So don't think in terms of evaluation that way. Rise above the whole thinking of the world and become an instrument of divine awareness in which your happiness, your love, your peace is yours every moment, because you're not using the moment to gain something in the future. Imagine that. The mind has so settled in to its consciousness in God that it's not using every moment in order to manipulate things so that it will make the future better. It's not, you're not in the now, you're not present. You're worried and you're afraid if you're doing that. So let me finish this statement before we meditate. You got to tell me when you come out. Don't sneak out like that. I didn't even know you were here. How long have you been here?
A minute, 2 minutes.
Okay. Just let me know when you're coming.
Okay.
All right, I'll conclude this now. A problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways, and what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer from another. You are in conflict, and that is true if you're still operating from the illusionary definition of self. Thus, it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Yet, if God gave an answer, there must be a way in which your problems are resolved, for what He wills already has been done. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. God must have given you a way of transcending the illusionary thinking that you grew used to in trying to solve your problems, have given you a way to transcend all of that limited thinking from that limited definition in order to resolve and bring you into this moment, the holy instant in which you recognize there is, in everything I look upon and in every moment I find myself, the presence of peace, healing, and love. So we're going to meditate together. Begin by taking several deep breaths. As you release your breath, release any pressing concerns that you may be harboring, bringing with you. Just breathing, remembering to breathe, can be a prayer when facing a challenge of any kind. Remembering just to breathe and become more present and not so overly concerned with the seeming challenge, but recognize how your thoughts can define that challenge and make it difficult for you to feel peace and to receive insight, answers, and healing. So remembering to breathe, just breathing, can be a holy prayer that supplies resolution and answers to any challenge. And we can facilitate our meditation by gently holding this ideal, this mantra in our awareness. Everyone I look upon, everyone I see is part of God, just like me. Everyone I look upon, everyone I see is part of God, worthy of forgiveness and compassion, just like me. Everyone I look upon, everyone I see is part of God, worthy of forgiveness, compassion, and love, just like me. In this refined level of awareness, we will offer the names of those who have been submitted to our prayer list. As Norma calls each name, simply sustain the peace of the awareness of one, for all minds are in communication on that level. Just sustain the meditation and the peace.
Kyle, Taylor, Kingsley, Shelley and family, James and Lisa, Rebecca and Matt, Ann Gooding Lord, Michael, Sienna, Ariana, Greg Leggett, Michelle McAtzer, Crystal Leggett, Garrett Duncan, Chassis and family, Kelly Cyril's family and friends, State of Colorado, Orion and Jess, Tom and Vale, Jeannie, Nim Wengod, Papa Cow's family, Holly, Tristan and Johnny, Karma, Twee, Marshall, Zach, Aria, Asteria, Calopi, Andrea, Sharon, Zoe and Ryan, Tanner, Zorba, Bia, Unda, Matt, people of the USA, Rainier, Rawi, Aldous and Cloud, Darren, Nick, Celeste, Sal, Ruth, Yusa, Lisa, Michelle, Michael, Trudy, friends and family, Catherine, Echo, Bob Weir's family, Anna Fletcher, Rennie Nicole Goods, children and family, Sandy Kaufman, Alex, Tracy, Henry, Kelly, Rachel Gooding Lord, women, migrants, refugees, immigrants, minorities, LGBTQ community, social justice activists, artists, Perfecto, Gonell, Fish, Nancy, Shaggy, Cookie, Oso, Anna, Dana, trans community, support for immigrants and Muslims, Valerie, Mary, Jean, Sandy, Bill, Colin, George, Lauren, Andrew, Louis Jordan, Sammy, Noah, Jacob, Aston, Kara, musicians, poor in spirit, poor in finances, public servants, David Bowie, Bob Weir, Chloe Weir, Brian and Patty, John, Joseph, Uncle Jerry, Gayleen Boyle, Eddie Zeke, Joe Spence, Sailor, Paige, Celinda Wu, John, Marion, Kristen, Trevor, Nate, Oliver, Mia, Hans, Dawn, Marion, Taryn, Mickey, Lillian, Wilkins family, Susanna, Dennis, Chetta, Phoenix, Brittany, Susan, Vanessa, HD, Joanne, Joey, Albert, Jimmy, Mac, Sue and Jay, H, Dorn, Kayla Sabala, Guy Smith, Joe Smith, Kathy Brzezinski, Andrea, Don, Darren, Leo, Tom, Carolyn, Eva, Nicola, Jolik, Lydia, Will Fenio, Brian Healy, Sherry, Susan, Joanne and Mary, Penn Martin, Marianne Nestor Cassini, Sandy Spahn, Lori, Dan, Deadheads Everywhere. And you can call out a name at this time if you would like to do so.
D. Matthew and family, S. Casey and family, S. Daniel and family, Sandy Spahn, Dan Spahn, the whole Spahn family.
You see this healing light surrounding the prayer box and all the people's names that have been submitted throughout the month. We see them healed, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let's take a moment now to embrace the vision of the new heaven in earth, seeing that this divine consciousness rising in the awareness of everyone sharing this Boulder community with us. And this divine awareness restoring harmony, healing, health, and peace, flowing in the awareness of everyone sharing the state of Colorado with us. And this growing, pristine, enlightened awareness, rising in the awareness of everyone sharing these United States of America with us. And this consciousness moving, permeating the consciousness of every nation, every group, religion, every relationship human beings have to the earth and all the creatures of the earth, restoring that pristine harmony, healing and love. As we pray, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now, but the way we're doing this on these Wednesday nights, we've placed an offering basket right in the back, in the center, so that if you want to make a donation to Unity, you can put your donation in that basket. And to those of you that are watching this live stream online or on Facebook or YouTube, you can just bring up unityofboulder.com, and that's our website that has a code, a QR code, that allows you to make donations to Unity of Boulder. And we have that QR code as well in the lobby. So if you want to make a donation from your cell phone, you can just scan that QR code in the lobby and make that donation to continue to support this Unity of Boulder ministry. So everyone here can bring into their hands that gift they'd like to make. We can bless that gift in our hands, and once we are exiting from the sanctuary, we can place that gift in that basket in the center. And so with this gift in hand, we bless it with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is. So, You're all invited to join us on Sunday at either the 9 o'clock or the 11 o'clock service. And I would suggest to those of you that are watching this on a screen, even the Sunday services, you might just want to take a Sunday off and come in to the physical church and share in the energy that's right here with all the people with us on Sundays. So give that a shot every now and then. We'd love to have you join us here. To everyone, have a beautiful, enlightened evening. We have tea and cookies for those of you that want to stay for a few moments and chat through these doors to your left. To everyone, good night.